If you're just joining my series on dialogue, then I suggest you first look at part 1 and 2 before starting this one. It will make this video easier to follow. When writing dialogue for your story, ask yourself if it's moving your story forward, creating suspense, giving insight into your character's goal, or providing information. Another thing you should keep in mind while writing dialogue is although you want to try to mimic a real life conversation, you don't want to mimic a real life conversation. What I mean by that is, while writing the dialogue for your characters, you'll endeavor to make them as real as possible. So you will try to make them sound like real people. The problem with that is, most of the time, real people's conversations are boring. Think about when you and your friends, or you and your children, or you and your parents have a conversation. These conversations aren't meant for the enjoyment of others. You simply have something to say and you say it. You are direct and to the point and not trying to entertain anyone. But for your story, that's exactly what you must do: entertain your reader. Time for another of my little tales.
Okay, let's go.
A man by the name of Ezra recently opened a little variety shop in a little rural area a few miles outside of the big city. He was new to the region, having moved his family from the big city for a life where he could be on a first name basis with everyone who came into his shop. So he greeted each new customer with a smile and a vow that if he didn't have what they asked for in stock, he would do his best to order it in. His shop was quite unique in that it was the only one of its kind for several miles in any direction. As a matter of fact, it was the only shop of its kind outside of the big city. He also realized that unlike the shop he once had in the big city, where he would generally see his customers a couple of times a week, at his new location, his customers came from great distances and usually on foot, so it was common for an entire month to pass before seeing a particular customer again. Then one Saturday afternoon, a young girl by the name of Brooke, about the age of 11, came into the shop and was in the process of looking around when Ezra asked if he could help her find what she was looking for. She turned with a smile and told him that she had saved up her money to buy a dress, almost identical to the one she was wearing, but instead of the red color that she was wearing and the only one in her house that she could wear, she wanted one that was pink. Ezra explained that he didn't carry such a dress in stock, but he could order one from the big city. With an even bigger smile, she thanked him and said she'd be back when the dress had arrived. A couple of weeks later, Ezra was looking out of his shop window when he recognized the red dress and saw that the little girl had returned. When she stepped into his shop, he was standing behind the counter with a smile on his face. "I have good news," he began. "I was able to get a beautiful pink dress for you. It arrived only yesterday." The little girl stood in the middle of the shop and stared back at him with a frown on her face. "Pink? I hate pink. I want a dress like this red one I have on, but in the color of yellow." Ezra looked at her in confusion. "But I've already ordered the pink dress for you." "I don't care," she said. "I want a yellow dress." Ezra, wanting to make a good impression with the little girl, apologized for making the mistake of ordering the wrong dress and promised to return it and get the yellow dress that she wanted. 2 weeks passed, and Ezra was outside sweeping up the front stoop when he recognized the red dress and realized that the little girl had returned for her dress. When he was standing behind the counter, he brought into view a very pretty box. "Here it is," he said with a smile, "the yellow dress you had ordered." The smile that had been on the little girl's face when she stepped into the shop suddenly disappeared. "Yellow? I hate yellow. I asked you to order me a dress like this red one, but in the color pink." Ezra stared down at the little girl in utter surprise. "But you told me you hated pink. That's why I ordered you the yellow dress." "I could never tell you I hate pink," said Brooke. "It's my favorite color. Yellow is the color I don't like." Ezra thought for a moment. He figured that people in rural areas don't always know their own minds, and thought about his promise to himself to try to please all of his customers. "Okay then," he said. "If you're absolutely sure that you don't want this yellow dress, I'll send this one back and order the pink dress for you." 2 more weeks passed, and Ezra was outside retrieving his latest delivery when he looked up the street and recognized the red dress and realized that the little girl had returned. He had just made it behind the counter when she came into the store. "You've come at the right time," he said. "Your pink dress has just arrived." "Pink? How many times do I have to tell you? I hate pink. I asked you for the yellow dress." After staring at her with a look of frustration, he quickly pointed to the door. "Get out," he yelled, "and don't come back." The little girl stared at him with anger in her eyes and then shouted something at the top of her lungs before storming out of the shop. After hearing what she said, Ezra felt very ashamed of himself and ran out of the shop after her, apologizing. Today, I'll talk about how to properly use dialogue tags. Then I'll tell you what the little girl yelled at Ezra. Think of your dialogue as a conversation that is being eavesdropped by someone you're trying to impress. You're talking to your best friend about the fantastic woman you recently met, knowing that she's able to hear everything you're saying from the next room. Or you're one of two parents in a discussion over the pros and cons of getting a tattoo, while the daughter in question sits patiently at the dinner table with you. In the first example, if you didn't know she could hear you, your conversation might go as follows. "Met this woman," said Steve. "What's she like?" asked Harrison. "You know." "Been out with her yet?" "No." "Invite her over." "Maybe." Now let's have the same conversation where both characters know the woman can hear everything they are saying. "I met this really great woman the other day," said Steve. "Really?" asked Harrison. "What's she like?" "She's kind, really attractive, and she has a good heart," answered Steve. "You should bring her over to meet Jennifer," said Harrison. "I think they'd hit it off." "Yeah, maybe. I'll ask her," said Steve. As you can see from this example, once there's an audience, the dialogue stems less from a selfish point of view and more toward including the needs of others. In the first example, Steve doesn't seem to care about this conversation. For all we know, he's preoccupied with a video game or something. And nothing either of them are saying has done anything to move your story forward. But in the second example, when they are giving a type of performance for the woman they know is listening in, Steve has more of an interest in the conversation, and with the mention of Jennifer, your reader is now curious to find out about her. This conversation has moved your story forward. Let's look at the other example. First, where the parents are speaking selfishly in private. No tattoo, said Dad. She'll look like a freak, said Mom. She can kiss any decent job goodbye. Kids today, no respect, no respect. Now, let's try that dialogue again, but this time where the parents are speaking to their daughter who sits quietly and listens. I'm not saying a tattoo is a bad thing, said Dad. Neither am I, said Mom. I just think that given that it's a life choice, it's best not to act rashly. I agree, said Dad. I'd hate to wake up the next morning and realize I've made a huge mistake. Yeah, a large black spiderweb covering the side of my neck. Ugh, said Mom. Forget about the Yale or Harvard type schools, said Dad. And you might not realize it now, but you'd be limiting several job prospects, added Mom. Yeah, I can't see many second interviews, said Dad. Maybe for now. How about something small and discreet, said Mom. Yeah, just to test the waters, said Dad. In this example, both parents are using a form of reverse psychology on their daughter by having a conversation to show her the bad side of getting a tattoo. It's important to keep in mind, like the friends or the parents, you must put your characters into a dialogue that is designed for an audience. Even if you create a scene where two thieves are secretly planning a robbery, their conversation is really for an audience. It may give the appearance of secrecy, but the dialogue isn't really for the two characters planning the robbery. They are just characters that you created. Characters you created to entertain your readers. So, whatever conversations they have is first and foremost a dialogue for others to enjoy. I'm not sure if you noticed, but except for the beginning, so you could know who was in the conversation, I hadn't used any dialogue tags in the first part of each example. Then in the second half of both examples, I used far too many. You might not have heard them referred to as dialogue tags before, but a dialogue tag is a small phrase either before, after, or in between the actual dialogue itself. My reason for leaving them out in the first examples is to allow you to see the flow in the dialogue. Far too often, new novelists get bogged down believing they need to fill their dialogue scene with a vast amount of dialogue tags, and by doing so, ruin what might otherwise be a nice, flowing conversation. Instead, what they're left with is a choppy dialogue that is filled with so many dialogue tags, your reader's attention is diverted onto who said this and who asked that, unable to relax and enjoy the story. Let's look at this example of a conversation between two strangers overrun with dialogue tags like our earlier example. Are you waiting for the 8:17 train? He asked. Yes, she answered. It's usually on time, he said. It's sometimes late? She asked. I think I remember it was once, he said. That's surprising, she said. Really out of character, he said. Power outage? She asked. No, he answered. What if it doesn't come? She asked. No need for concern, he said. There's another at 8:42. Look, she said. Here it comes now. 8:17, he said. Right on time. With so many unnecessary dialogue tags, your reader is so overwhelmed by them, they are unable to relax and follow the story. Let's look back at the girl hit by the car example. Hinkle Street, called the driver. He brought the 4:45 bus to a stop and hit the lever to open the front door. Here you go, sweetheart, he said. home safe and sound. Thanks, Carl, said Cynthia. It's been a hectic night. The ER was crazy. She steps down from the bus and turns to face him. Well, you're home now. He had just glanced over at her house before turning back with a smile. Your mum can get to sleep now. She's not the only one. Once my head hits that pillow, I doubt I'll wake before noon. Like always, see you tomorrow, sweetheart. Okay, Carl. Later. Your reader can surmise from the beginning that this is a conversation between two people. Therefore, unless another person enters the conversation or there is a passing of time, your reader doesn't need to be constantly reminded that he said one line, and then she said the next, and then he said the following, and then she said the other, and so on and so on. I'm not sure if you noticed it, but after a while, there were no more dialogue tags. If you didn't notice it, the transition was seamless and the conversation was uninterrupted. And that's the intended goal. The dialogue did exactly what it was designed to do, move your story forward, and it did it in a flowing manner. In part 4 of my series on dialogue, I'll delve further into the importance of dialogue tags in my next video titled When Not to Use Dialogue Tags. And now, I'll tell you the ending to the story I call Looks Can Be Deceiving. When the little girl was ordered out of the shop for a reason she couldn't understand, she became so angry she yelled back at Ezra at the top of her lungs. You are a very rude man, and I'm going to tell my twin sister Brooke not to bother ordering her dress or anything else from you. Thanks for watching. If you found anything that I said beneficial to you in any way, hit that subscribe button because you never know. My next video might just be helpful too.